Once upon a plague-infested nightmare in the foul-smelling, rat-infested streets of 14th century Europe, there lived a most unfortunate creature, the plague doctor. Picture a man in a long leather robe, giant crowbeak mask, gloves that hadn't seen soap in weeks, and the eternal aroma of herbs and rot. It sounds like the start of a fantasy horror story, right? Nope. Just another Tuesday in 1348. You might think plague doctors were the elite, badass medical warriors with prestigious degrees. Nope. Most of them were the medieval equivalent of that guy who once watched an episode of House. Towns were desperate and poor, so they just hired whoever said, "Yeah, I'll poke the boils." Some had training, most didn't. Some were even criminals hired because they had nothing left to lose. Their daily task? Roaming plague-infested alleys, poking the sick, lancing buboes, saying last rites and writing down who died, because medieval Europe loved a good death tally. Oh, and good luck getting paid. Towns would often promise gold and land if you survived. Let's talk about the look. The infamous bird mask wasn't a fashion statement. It was DIY PPE. The beak was stuffed with herbs, flowers, vinegar-soaked sponges, and sometimes literal poop. Why? Because they thought bad smells, miasma, caused the plague. So naturally, stuffing your face with lavender and turds was science. Kinda. Where did they sleep? If they were lucky, alone, in a barn, or in a quarantined inn. If they weren't, next to dying patients. There weren't exactly five-star plague hotels. Some slept in their full gear, others slept outside. They often didn't live long enough to complain. Food. Hope you like stale bread, pickled vegetables, and meat boiled beyond recognition. If you were fancy, maybe cheese. But often their meals were whatever they could scavenge between patient visits, sometimes from dead people's homes. Appetizing. Did they actually help? Depends on how you define help. They tried treatments like bloodletting, burning herbs, or putting onions on infected wounds. None of it really worked, but hey, they were doing their best. They did write down what they saw, and that info helped later generations. Becoming a plague doctor wasn't a dream job. A lot of people were forced into it. Criminals got deals, poor people got paid. Some were tricked or pressured. It wasn't like they were applying on LinkedIn. It was more like, "Congratulations, you're our new plague guy. Good luck." Let's talk gear. These doctors carried long sticks. Not for walking, but for poking patients from a safe distance. They also had bags full of herbs, sharp tools, and sometimes hot irons. The stick also doubled as a self-defense weapon. Yup, medieval multitasking at its finest. Some doctors added their own flair. They painted crosses or symbols on their coats, stuffed different herbs into their masks. A few even used colored lenses in their goggles. Did any of it help? Not really, but style points maybe? Were plague doctors clean? Absolutely not. Baths were rare. They rubbed oil or herbs on their skin instead. Their leather outfits were never washed. After weeks, they stank worse than the plague itself. But people thought water spread disease, so no soap, just hope. In some towns, plague doctors had to live with the sick. They weren't allowed to leave the infected areas. That meant sleeping in plague houses or special huts near the edge of town. They didn't get breaks or time off. Their job was 24/7, and their neighbors were rats, fleas, and dying patients. Not exactly relaxing. People believed all sorts of weird things could cure the plague. Some rubbed onions or crushed emeralds on the skin. Others sniffed flowers or burned herbs to chase away bad air. A few even believed sitting in a sewer or sniffing toilets would help. Spoiler alert, none of it worked. But they kept trying because they were desperate. Cities promised plague doctors money, but didn't always pay. Some doctors worked for weeks or months and got nothing. If the town ran out of money or the doctor died, well, too bad. Some even tried to sue, but the courts were a mess too. Basically, they risked their lives for a paycheck that might never come. When people kept dying, Angry townsfolk sometimes blamed the plague doctor. "Why isn't he fixing this?" they'd shout. Some doctors were attacked or kicked out of town. It was dangerous just to do the job. They were stuck between the sick and the angry. Talk about pressure. Being around death all day wasn't just risky, it was sad. Plague doctors saw whole families wiped out. They watched kids, parents, and neighbors die day after day. No one was there to help them deal with that. Many got depressed or just gave up. Some even went mad from stress and fear. After the plague ended, people wanted to forget it ever happened. The bird mask, once a symbol of help, became a symbol of death. Some towns banned them, others destroyed the masks. They didn't want any reminders. Today, we think the mask looks cool or creepy, but back then, it meant someone nearby was dying. Here's what a plague doctor's day looked like. Wake up in your dirty clothes, walk through a sick city, visit infected houses. Write down who died, try weird cures, eat dry bread, avoid angry mobs, sleep in fear, repeat. It wasn't a job, it was survival mode, every day. Most plague doctors didn't get a happy ending. Many caught the disease and died. Some vanished without a trace. A few lived but were forgotten. There were no medals, no thank you notes, just quiet burials in mass graves. They helped others and were left behind. Even though they didn't have real medicine, plague doctors showed up when no one else would. They wrote down what they saw, and that helped future doctors. They weren't perfect, but they were brave. So yeah, being a plague doctor sucked, but they still mattered. Next time you're tired of your job, just be glad you're not wearing a bird mask, sleeping in a rat-infested hut, and eating moldy bread. Sleep tight and hug your hand sanitizer. This has been another strange, dark, and kinda heroic tale from Lame Stories. Good night, and may your dreams be plague-free. Be